Everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Isabel from Accienta. Right now, we're going to start with our webinar entitled Acceleration to Excellence in Digital Construction. BIM and ISO 19650 implementation in Autodesk Construction Cloud, presented by, of course, Che Kasuf, Tulin Awad, and of course, one from Redington, which is Ram. So the agenda for today, most likely we'll talk about certain stuff. And the speakers for today are, we have Che from BSS. He has 25 years of experience and working for some of the largest construction firms worldwide. He's also known for the largest projects in oil and gas, civil and infrastructure in Europe, UAE, KSA, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, and Sunway. Another expert of ours is Tulin Awad. She's an architect and BIM Collaborate Pro expert. She's our main person go-to for BIM Collaborate Pro. And she has a proven track record of leading webinars and training sessions on advanced construction technologies like Forma, Twin Motion, ensuring clients achieve maximum efficiency and value from their tools. We also have Ram. Ram is a senior technical consultant for Redington. As you know, he's a key voice in today's conversation. He enables digital transformation across AEC space with a deep understanding of Autodesk ecosystem and regional industry needs. So now we're going to start with the webinar. Che, take it away.
Thank you, Isabel, for the introduction. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. All right, so whenever we have a project, it has thousands of activity, thousands of days and man-hour that need to be spent to achieve it. What could go wrong? So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so if we take the various phases of the project from the inception until the handover, right? We're gonna be having, for example, many of the data that need to be reused. So for example, during the design, we need the BOQs, we need to make sure we are using proper names so that not everybody get confused what we mean by the drawing number, by the BIM model, by the various material codes and so on. We need to make sure that anybody who is working on this project have access to the latest version. So what normally happens in the legacy project, we can see people are moving the bubble from phase to phase. So the designer will do just what matters for his design without thinking of the controls or the construction or the handover. And then when he give it to the control, we see that the control is doing some duplication of effort in order to do something that could have been done easily during the design. And then when the controls hand it over to the construction as well, we will see similar issue that many of the items are being reinvented and recreated. And when we reach the handover, many of the company, they might end up recruiting a third party just to clean up the data and make it available for facility management at a later on. So moving this bubble is causing many of the data to be fragmented. We can see many people working on a certain element, having to demolish it, rebuild it again. The collaboration is also a big factor here. So we'll have limited collaboration. People, they wait for the weekly meeting or maybe the monthly meeting to voice their concern and issue because of limited collaboration. And of course, the duplication as well happen. Next. So the other item which also draws our attention, the amount of effort that normally happens or is being placed into a certain BIM model. What happens is being used by many firms only for some sort of coordination, clash detection, and this is where it stops. So what we need to do is these information is crucial for the construction, for the handover, for the facility management. So we need to make sure that this effort that is being done during the BIM phase or the BIM authoring phase to be really used in subsequent phases. So when we look, for example, during detailed design or construction drawing or shop drawing level or later on at the facility management, many of the data are not being really leveraged and used, and this impact mainly the project execution. Next. Now, what is ISO 19650? So the ISO 19650 is a way to make sure that these various phases talk to each other. They talk with a proper discipline, with a proper standard of information, so there won't be any, let's say, missed communication because of some sort of translation. So we make sure these people talk to each other. Now, the biggest challenge when we talk about ISO 19650, we can see in this list we have many standards. So question number one is, which one shall I open? Do I go to -1, -2, -5? Which one really applies to me? It's a bit of challenge to know which one applies to you, especially when you look at the title. The title are very generic, like concept and principle, delivery phase, operational, information exchange. So the title are a bit generic. So we need to know exactly which ISO 19650 applies to me. Shall I implement all of them? Do I start with, a preliminary implementation, then expand it? What strategy are most relevant to me? Do I need to worry only about the information exchange? Does the operation make any sense for me to work on it? So these are the various questions that need to be answered when we want to implement ISO 19650. Next. Okay, can we just finish the whole animation? Yes. So now when it comes to the ISO 19650, the most important part is the documentation in order to voice our requirement. So the concept happened as follow. As an owner, he want to make sure that whoever want to give him information or data is in line with what he need. Like, for example, if I want to build a hotel and I want to operate it, I want to make sure, for example, my asset have the proper information, proper maintenance requirement, proper catalogs. I want to be able to see them in the 3D model. These sort of information requirement need to be put in a standard before we start that specific project. And this is a responsibility of the owner themselves. This is where they create the EIR, and the EIR normally is, uh, as we can see here, exchange information management, but it is a collection of sub-document, like for the organization structure, the asset, and the PIR or the project information. So once we group those documents into the EIR, then any subcontractor or any designer that we need to deal with, we will tell them, listen, I want you to prove to me that you can really answer my requirement in the EIR. And how does this subcontractor prove it? He need to create the BEP or the BIM execution plan. So that's how those mainly documentation talk to each other. So the subcontractor need to prove that he is understanding and capable of meeting the requirement of the owner via the BEP. Next. Okay, so now we have the poll. Isabella, can you take care of the poll, please?
So the audience on today's deck, we really appreciate to have your answers responded here so that we can cater in such a way to understand which industry and the best role suitable for this webinar as well. Thank you so much.
So now I think, yeah, we need to pass. Do we have another question in the poll, Isabella, or that's it? All right. I think we need to pass now the screen to Tolene so she can take care of the direct implementation.
Great. Thank you, Trey. Now, before we continue, whenever you feel that there's a question that you need to ask, you can drop it down in the chat box, or there's this Q&A box. You can also drop down your questions. So feel free to ask anything, and we'll be answering your questions once this presentation is over. Great. So how ISO 19650 can be implemented. Now we're going to show you more of a technical demo on how we can do that in the platform itself. So if you have attended any of our previous webinars, since this is a webinar series, you will also see how we can create our own project from scratch, how we can create our own folder structure, how to add members, and anything that have to do with setting up a project. So if some of you don't have any idea how to do that, you can go back to our YouTube videos and you can see all of the webinars listed below with the titles on them. So let me just share my screen. Great. So I'll be jumping from one tab to another, so excuse that this is not presented. Now, how ISO 19650 can be implemented in ACC. There's a couple of clauses that we're going to be talking about, such as defining and managing personas when it comes to administration. So here we are assigning the right rules and permissions to keep your project team on track. And we will also talk about the folder structures and naming standards. So this is more for you to stay organized with clear folder setups and consistent naming. Then we will be also showing you how to create and revision management, also using files. And lastly, which is accountability and traceability with your view also on Docs. Now, this is more to show you how ACC tracks reviews and approvals for full transparency. And under those points, we have collaboration and coordination, submittals, RFIs, quality management, assets, business intelligence. Again, since this is a webinar series, we will be talking about this in next webinars. So please stay tuned for our next webinars. Great. Now, to begin with the demo, I'll be showing you how to add and classify. Now, basically, this is very important later on because when we set up the certain rules can be given certain permissions to certain folders. So this is all for you to keep track on the project itself. Now, I will show you how we can add companies and how we can add roles. Basically, we go to our project. From there, we have this drop-down box. We can choose account admin. Once we went to the account admin, it takes us to your main hub. So my main hub here is Accienta. We have a couple of clauses that we can go to, but we're going to start with the companies and roles for today's webinar. Now, basically, once we go to the company, we can add the company by just typing the name of it. Now, if we go back, we can see the names of companies that we have. Let's say we have the ADAR, which is an architectural. It's really important for you to set the trade, and I will show you that why in a bit. So if you want to add a company, again, we can just type in the name of the company. Let's say ADCV, which is civil. Let's close that. Once that we're done, we will choose the trade or company type. So let's say this is earthwork. Once we're done, you can also add the website, the country, the address of the company, if it has any phone number, if there's like a company ID, tax ID, and any description that is needed. And as simple as that, we have our company right here. So we can also see how many projects are listed under this company, how many members are there in this company. So if you go down to previous companies added, such as Design LLC, which is also an architectural firm, we can see how many projects it has, how many members it has, and when was it created on. So this is for the companies itself. Now, if we go to roles, Adding roles is really important here. And as I showed you here, we're going to be following the ISO 19650 rules. And if we go to the next slide, for an example, here we have a table. This table shows the common naming when it comes to roles in ISO 19650, such as BIM consumer, BIM creator, BIM controller, BIM approver. And for each role, we can also see what type of permissions they are given. So this is, again, this is from ISO 19650. Now for the BIM consumer, they can use the BIM view level number 2, and I'll be talking about this in a bit, but here we just want to take the names of the roles that we have right here. So we can scroll down. These names are already added by ACC itself. So we already have a BIM consumer. So let's say we want to add a BIM creator as an example. So here we're just going to go ahead and type in the name, BIM creator, and add a role. We can also add our BIM controller, BIM approver, and once that we are done with the folder structure, we can also show you how we can give them permissions based on a folder level. So this is for, as we said before, this is for adding companies and roles. When we go next, we will give them access based on ISO 19650. So as we said, we added our BIM consumer and we added our BIM creator. So let's go back. Sorry for going back and forth here. So I want to go to home from the account admin. Once we added our roles, we're good to go. We go to the project tab. You can scroll down, choose the project that you'll be working on. Let's say we want to go to technical introduction and go to docs. So in docs, I have these couple of folders that we have created earlier on, and then we can give out permissions based on a whole folder, or we can go to a specific folder and give them further permissions as an example. So if we go to work in progress, we can go to permission settings. Once we are there, we can add our role. So from role, let's say we have added our BIM creator. So let's give them, here's our BIM creator. We will then give them a permission level. So if we go back to the presentation, here for the work in progress, they can get the edit level. So once we go back to the edit level, let me just move this around. We'll scroll down and then we can give them the edit, or we can also give them several, let's say, permission levels such as create, download. So we gave them here create, which is level number 1. And if we went here, we can also edit it again. So we can give them the edit from here. And if we want, we can go to the specific folder in the work in progress, such as architecture. Since he is the BIM creator, I want to give him more permission. Let's say I want him to manage here. So we can give them full administrative control. And in this way, when we scroll between work in progress, he only has the edit permission. And when we go to the architecture, he has the manage. So you can give roles certain permissions depending on the level of folder we are working on. So this is why it's very important for you to add the correct roles. Now, if we go to, let's say, adding a member, so let's go to members. Let's type in, let's say, a random email. So we have our engineer as an example. And then we can go enter. So it's something really easy for you when you want to add your project members. If you have a full-on ready Excel sheet, you can go ahead, just copy all of the emails, paste them here, and they'll all be added right here. So here we have our contractor. We can set up his company. So let's say he is a civil engineer. We go to the role and just give him a BIM creator. So that's why it's very important for you to add roles before we begin with the project itself, before adding our members, and then we can give them certain roles, positions, so that way we can give them the permissions needed for each and every folder that we have. Once we're done, we're going to send the invite to our subcontractor. And there it is. So this way we have added our members, we gave them the roles, we gave them the permissions, depending on our folder structure. And next, this is a very important matter when we want to implement ISO 19650 in our projects, basically, which is the folder structure. We have two types of folder structure, which is the complete folder structure, the one that you can see on the right here. So we have the project files, and it's more, let's say, complex. So we have the accepted drawings, partial drawings, constructed drawings, and we have the simplified one, which is basically, we have the work in progress, the WIP, a shared folder, and a published folder, which is the folder structure that we have in the project right here. And in the work in progress, I have added my disciplines such as architecture, interior, landscape, MEP. You can add the civil, you can add all of the disciplines as needed. Next, we will be talking about the naming standard. So the naming standard, you can enforce the naming standard wherever it's critical to your project. For example, ensuring all drawings, models, and documents are named in the same format helps avoid confusion, of course, and it keeps your project data structured. So if you want to implement that, we're going to go back to our project. We have the settings right here, and we go to the naming standards. So here I have already chosen the default ISO 19650, which is in ACC itself. I have already chosen that I want this to be implemented in my project. Of course, you can also create different naming standards, whether you want to create it from blank, whether you want to import it from an Excel sheet, or just choose the default one, which I have chosen right here. So if you want to see what is this default ISO 19650, what are the aspects when it comes, or the attributes when it comes to this naming standard, we go to the edit here. We can change the name of our naming standard, and then we have the naming convention. So for the naming convention you define is shown here in the preview box. So basically we have more than one aspect to us, such as the project. So the project here, it specifies the project name or the ID. We have the originator, which is the person or team creating the document. We have the volume / system, which is relevant to large projects where specific systems or areas are involved. We have the level location, which is very useful for projects with multiple floors or sections. We then have the type and role, which whether it's like a drawing or a model or other documents, and the role of the person who is managing it. And lastly, we have the number. A number is a unique identifier for each document or file. And we can also see here, we can edit the attribute details. Here it tells you that in this specific, let's say, area, it needs to be fully numbers. It's a text field. It ranges from 4 to 6 characters. It's numeric and it is required. Next, we have other related attributes such as status, revision, and classification. So you can also define these related attributes, which will ensure all your documents stay organized and traceable throughout the project lifecycle. So in the status, this is also as mentioned in the ISO 19650. So if we go down, we can see S0. So S0 is the initial status. S1 is suitable for coordination. If we go down, this is the authorized documents that we have right here. If we go down as well, which is basically B0, B1, which is the partially signed of documents. And if we go down, we have the as constructed record documents. So this is for the status, and then we have the revision. And lastly, we have the classification. So these are not required, as we can see right here. So I will show you now, if we uploaded a document, how can we change the name of it? Now, once we have made sure that our naming standards is perfect, it's good to go, we save it, and then we go to the view and edit. So this way, we can enforce the naming standard to whatever folder we choose. Again, we can choose folders to have the naming standard, we can choose other folders that don't have any naming standard. I will show you the difference between both. So here, our interior folder is has the naming standard enforced to it, and our architectural is not. So let's go and view the difference between them. Let's go back to files, to work in progress. We have our architectural. Now, once you see this tick icon right here, this tells you that the naming standards is applied to this folder. So for the architecture, we don't have this tick. So if we scroll down, we can see different namings. It's a bit chaotic, as we can see. That's why when we go to, let's say, interior, we can see that it has this naming standard. As I told you before, it has all of, let's say, the project number, the type and role, the volume, the location. So you can tell from the name itself, what is this document? And if we go to architecture, you can't actually tell what is ASC or what is elevation section detail. Okay, but what level, where, who downloaded this, who uploaded this, and so on. Now, if we want to, let's say, go to architecture, from architecture, or let's say go to interior actually, we want to upload a file. Now I want to upload, let's say, one of my PDFs. So once I uploaded it, it tells me that this does not conform to the naming standard, and we need to resolve these errors when it comes to the name itself. So here it tells me this is the correct way of naming it. So again, we have the project and it tells you what type of data we have to fill in. Now, once we have fixed the name, we can then upload it to our folder right here. So this is for the naming standard. If we move on, I want to show you how we can move files around. We want to move one file, let's say from architecture, which does not have a naming standard enforced to it, and we want to move it to the interior folder. So let's say I want to upload, or I have something uploaded already. We have this plan document. I'm going to go to the three dots right here and submit it for review. So I have already created an approval workflow. Now, we will also show you in later webinars how we can create workflows, what's the difference between one-step, two-step approvals, and how we can create our own approvals. Now, I have already created one right here. As we can see, this one-step approval, once this is approved, it will be copied to the interior file. As you remember, the interior file has a naming standard. Now let's call this again one step approval. Now I can't submit this file while there's this error that needs to be fixed. If I go to the error, it says that this file needs to conform with the naming standard, default ISO 1950, so it can be copied to that folder. Now, once I go to rename, it takes me to the same plan that I showed you earlier, to the same page that I showed you earlier. So here it says this is alphanumeric, the characters need to be from 2 to 6. Let's say this is A, B, C. If I go to the originator, I have this one example code right here to the volume setting. Let's choose one of them, the level location. So this is in level 1. The type of this document. So let's say this is database or drawing. The role of the person who is uploading it. So let's say I'm an architect, and the number. So this has to be, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. Once that it's done, we go to rename and submit. This way, it will give me the permission to submit it. And there it is. Now, if one of the documents that I have uploaded to, let's say, a file that does not conform to the ISO 1950, it will then go to the holding area. So this is in the holding area till I rename it and validate it. And this way, it will then be saved to the file itself. And lastly, we have revision handling. So for revision handling, I want to show you a new feature that has been installed. If we go to folders, settings, advanced settings, and if we scroll down, we have this display revision information next to file version number. So if I turn it on, this way it can OCR the revision and then it will be available for the metadata. And lastly, everything that we do in the platform itself is logged. So every activity is logged. So if we go, let's say, to the reviews, once we go to the reviews, let's say we can press on one of the reviewable workflows that we have created earlier, and then I can see all of the progress that we have right here. We can also see the activity. We can also turn on the notifications. So once I press on send email notifications, once my reviewer has accepted or submitted the review, I will then get an email notification so we can go to round 1, round 2, whether this was a one-step approval, two-step approval. And yes, so this way we can see how you can always stay on track. We can always get notifications. We can, how did we set up our whole folder structure, how we applied a naming standard, how we're moving around stuff, approving of certain sheets, and so on. Now let's go back to sharing our screen. And the mic is back to you, Chuck.
Okay, thank you, Celine. That was a great overview and walkthrough. I'm going to talk a little bit about the ISO 19650 implementation guide for ACC. Well, it covers ACC and other Autodesk products, and this is a guide which is around 7 booklets and 7 templates, and it contains everything that is required from OIR, PIR, EIR to even BEP, and how to implement that in ACC. And this is something that's available for Autodesk users. Next slide, please. So what's this package? We'll call it a package that you can download, and I'll share the link where you can get it from. But it includes a small self-assessment that you can take that gives you a small overview of where you stand in terms of your BIM capabilities, planning, and everything that's related in one form or other to the ISO 19650 implementation. Also has a quick start guide, which I don't know if you can see it here. Could you press next tab just to drop it? Yep. So this guide actually shows how we start the journey after doing the self-assessment. We start with the OIR, configuring the templates for the OIR, which is the organization information requirements, the AIR, which covers asset, PIR, which covers the project, and then the EIR, the employees information, which is the most important one before it gets turned and converted in by your contractor, by your subcontractors into the BIM execution plan. And this complete set is covered in a also an implementation guide that covers docs, covers build, BIM Collaborate Pro with Revit, and of course Takeoff or Autodesk Takeoff. Next slide, please. Okay, so a little bit about us. We thought we'd introduce. So in the Middle East, BlackSmith Soft is allied with Accienta. Accienta is a Autodesk Gold partner, while BlackSmith Soft, and we're headed. Our head office is in Holland and in the UK, in London, UK. And we cover, of course, the Middle East through Accienta. Now, Accienta provides not only the Autodesk ACC licensing, but also does implementation on Autodesk Construction Cloud and related solutions. When it comes to ISO 19650 implementation, we help a lot of companies implement ACC and other Autodesk products using the ISO 19650, either the templates that are already built into the application, like you saw today, or by providing consulting on the documents that we'll be sharing, giving you a link so that you have access to them. We're also focused on doing the integration part, and very important part of ISO 19650 is integrating different systems, integrating also your planning, your design, everything related to that process, all the way to the handover and commissioning system, and of course digital twin as well. And when you have everything harmonized in one go using the ISO standard that we discussed, this can really help. And our team covers this, the ISO 19650 and the ACC implementation over 4 continents. And we're always happy to hear from you if you have any questions. Next. Next slide. Yep. So this is just the link. We will be sharing it by email as well, where you can download the ISO 19650. Of course, you have to be an Autodesk customer. And we will also be taking now your questions. So please feel free to either drop them into the chat or drop them into the Q&A, sorry, button down there. Okay, so I think now we can go with the questions. We do have our first question, Che. Can the standards be defaulted to all projects, or each project has to be set up individually?
So if you
Che?
can unmute yourself.
Sorry, I was answering. So yeah, we have the concept of templating within the ACC, so we can leverage this to defaulted part of this template on those specific folders, and you can pass it from project to project. Okay, for the guide, I believe already Chuck answered it for Mr. Harry. And the poll is not showing. Yeah, it's already explained.
Takeoff.
Okay, so here they talked about the takeoff. So, okay, for the takeoff, mainly is, you know, your model and your design drawing, they normally give you geometrical information. So for example, if you model, let's say a foundation, it will tell you what is the width, the height, the meter cube, and so on. But to transform those information into actual quantities to be used as a takeoff or actual bill of quantity to be a contractual term, you need to be able to leverage these dimensional information in order to make them usable, whether for contract or for buying the material. Takeoff actually fulfill this part. And the most important part of takeoff is it allows you to add this information with reference to your design. So if you have a 2D drawing or a BIM model, you can link this entry in the takeoff to the BIM model. So if it gets revised, the takeoff will be revised as well.
Okay, the next one is about the ISO 19650 list, the roles.
Now, the ISO 19650 does not specifically mention the role which are in ACC, of course. What it mentioned is, it mentioned like people should have a restricted level to certain information. People who are allowed to modify are mentioned there, but it doesn't specifically mention the role. So what we did is, based on our understanding of the ISO 19650, we implemented it in ACC in this fashion. Who generated the ISO 19650? So ISO 19650 is mainly it was originally a British standard, and now it has been adopted everywhere. So you can see it all across Europe, in the Middle East. It is being adopted everywhere, but the source was from the UK, United Kingdom. Okay, so can you please elaborate on the cloud linkage of projects from company server to ACC? So now, if you have your own company server and you want to link it to ACC, there are a number of ways. So you have the typical way, which does not require like advanced knowledge. You can use what you call an Autodesk connector. It is very similar to the Google Drive that you put on your machine. Anything you drag and drop into this will be uploaded. This is the first part. Now, the other part, if let's say you have a Primavera on your, let's say, servers, or maybe you have a certain ERP that is legacy on your server. So Autodesk provides us with a software called the ACC Connect. And one of its feature, we call it on-premise capability, the on-prem. This one, it will take it and then it will go and integrate with your local machine. So if you want to send, for example, some REST API request, or maybe SOAP request, all sort of information, maybe you can even execute some source code on your own machine using this one. This is how we can integrate with your local company server.
Okay.
Okay.
I think this question, Talene can also, because she's a Forma expert. Talene, would you like to take this question about what is Forma and how does it promise to get rid of files completely?
Now, it doesn't promise to get rid of files completely. What it is actually, what we're trying to do here and what is Autodesk trying to do is move everything to the cloud. So honestly, Autodesk vision for Forma is so huge. And for us knowing that here early on, you know how like BIM back in the days was like a very huge idea and everyone was so excited to know that. And then some of us really knew it later on, it was a bit late and so on. Now we're telling you that Forma is the future of Autodesk. So Forma's vision is having everything on the cloud. Basically, what they're trying to do is link every possible software to the cloud itself. And Forma is going to be more of a hub for everything. So what it does is it links between Revit, between your Forma model. What you can also do for the collaboration part, we can create some boards together. So if you are working, let's say remotely, or you're working from one place with another company, what you can do as well is collaborate on Forma itself, create boards, send out comments, send out emails. We can also, the Forma is more for the, let's say, planning phase. What it does is it gives you early on decisions, which is will affect your project later on. And also, we have already done a webinar about Forma. If you'd like to go back to it and just like watch the whole webinar, it gives you more details. And I believe, Ram, if you want to also give out some comments on Forma itself.
Hey, that's great, Dolin. Yeah, what exactly they were thinking, like Forma, would it replace the complete portfolio? But I think you have explained it in a well way. And what I can add up over here, just within this webinar, because of the crucial time, we have just the time limitations. So we strongly request everyone who wants to have that dedicated workshop in their office to enhance what exactly the learned ISO 19650 here, and also to know more about the Forma, just reach out to us, Accienta, Redington, and BlackSmith team. We can come up to your offices through a dedicated workshops on that, so that you will get a complete understanding in practical with your team of projects, how exactly the ISO 19650 can benefit. And also the Forma, as Tolin mentioned over here, Forma gonna be like a rocking star of handling all such kind of the portfolios from Autodesk, and where you will have better insights about the leveraging all the other solutions as well. Yeah, that's great. So feel free to drop your comments, and if you wanted to have a practical workshop, so Accienta is available here for all the technical and also the query sessions. We can come over to your offices with your available time, and we can have a wonderful live session on which exactly you are learning from today's webinar.
Great. Thank you, Ram. Che, there's a question for you.
Okay,
If
so
you'd like to
everything
read.
that was demonstrated will typically be performed by one person, role of the construction company, or this role will be different person per project. What was demonstrated appeared to be central admin role, maybe the BIM information manager centrally for all projects. Now, the roles and the companies, it's true they get created at the corporate level or at the account level. But in every project, even the same person, you can assign him one or multiple role. Now, we are just showing a tiny part, let's say, of what the ISO 19650 implementation in ACC would entail. But like, for example, you will have, even within that specific project itself, some people that you can assign them some admin capability on very specific folder. Like, for example, if you have a subcontractor, you give him a work in progress folder and you ask him, you upload your document here and integrate with the rest of the team. You might give him a certain capability for this. So some activity are at a corporate level, but definitely there are some which are at a project level. Okay. Do we need to be ISO 19650 certified as a company, or this is a guideline just need to be followed? Now, I don't see anybody really requesting a certificate as a company. What matters is if this guideline is followed and you can prove that you are following it if you want to take a job that is aligned. Normally, most of the owner, what they settle for is they give you the EIR and prove to them that you can comply with their EIR via the creation of your own BEP. Is there an option to assign a work to team member in ACC without using review feature? Now, there are many ways, like to do this. For example, what we can do is if you are using the build part, you have asset that could be used for this. You have the schedule one, which you can create a mini plan and assign work for people. You can use, for example, the issue itself as an issue. You can give it a certain type and assign it to people with a deadline that they need to review it. So it depends really on what sort of work you are looking at. Like we've seen people, for example, assigning work with full detail using the forms capability. So this would require a specific, let's say, part, and we can answer it up. Okay, no more questions.
If there are no more questions from anybody.
Yeah, we have one. What if we as a construction company follow ISO 19650, but the client does not? It does not start with ISO compliant EIR. Now, normally, if this has happened, it actually relieve, let's say, the requirement from your side as a construction company. So, there are, for example, some asset requirement. There are some design requirement that you might need to have to comply with. It will release it a bit on your hand. But definitely the ISO 19650 by itself, the whole process, the minimization of rework and reinvention of the wheel, it will help you in this. Some companies are certified ISO 19 on an initiative to bid on large project. It can be a requirement. The implementation of ISO 19650 and certification of it. Yeah, there might happen. So as a company, normally we do not provide this sort of certificate. There are a specialized company who do these sort of certificate. Maybe Chuck, you can send them the list of those company afterwards.
Sure.
Okay, yes, but the deviation from ISO will need to contamination of the business process. Do contractor insist on this with client? It's actually the other way around. In most cases, the client insists on the contractor. I've never seen, the other way around where contractor will take the extra effort to set, if it is not required by the client itself. And this actually, it's not only in the civil or let's say in the BIM world, it's across all company. On the oil and gas, we have seen the same. If the client does not require those, most probably the contractor does not follow.
Okay.
Okay.
Isabel, I guess we can conclude.
Okay, thank you all.
All right.
Thank you everyone for coming. And if you have any more questions for this webinar, just contact us at Accienta or Redington and BSS. We'll be glad to assist you.
Thank you everyone who joined this deck. We really appreciate your patience on hearing us.
Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.